Hey everybody, welcome back to Vegas Weekly for Saturday, July the 16th, 2022. It's back from a kind of vacation, I guess, a little break from the show. But we always try to bring you our Saturday program packed with Vegas facts and fantasies and descriptions of how best to live your Vegas life, or how to live your best Vegas life. This week, I've kind of been in this sort of thoughtful mode, which, as most of my friends know, is probably not a good thing. But just started thinking about Las Vegas and trying to place it in some sort of philosophical and sociological context. And yeah, that's the sign that you're about to enter one of my patented rants or digressions of sorts. You know, I'm pretty sure I didn't actually invent the phrase, but it's one I've used and which I find generally to be pretty accurate. And that is, to me, Las Vegas is kind of America, but America writ large. People in Texas say everything is bigger in Texas. I think everything's bigger in Las Vegas. It's the biggest hotels, the biggest attractions, the craziest nights. They're all in Vegas. And while Vegas is obviously a great place to visit, and one I've enjoyed on many occasions, and that many of you have as well, it's certainly not a flawless community. It's certainly not a place without its problems, just as America is a place not without its problems. One can't help but notice the number of rather desperate, sad people when one visits Las Vegas. Some of them are even the visitors, but certainly some of the residents. People who may have come to Las Vegas for sort of one last chance, and hasn't always necessarily worked out so well. I think we briefly alluded to the homeless situation in the city, and it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy wherever it happens. But it feels maybe a little more wrong when it's alongside such opulence and such joy and exuberance that one finds on the Las Vegas Strip or any of the big casinos around the city. Yeah, it's America writ large. It also feels like one of the most sort of democratic places ever. And I don't mean big D, but little. I don't even mean in the sense of being self-governing or something like that, no. There aren't many places you can go where you see all types of people, from all races and nationalities, of all ages and colors, of all preferences and proclivities, all more or less getting along besides one another. Heck, if you go to a church even, a place you would think would be particularly embracing of diversity and embracing of a lot of different kinds of people, you frequently discover that depending on the neighborhood, you get a very sort of homogeneous sort of flock. But not Vegas. No, you might sit next to your suburban neighbor in church. You might sit next to someone you would never otherwise have thought to associate with when you're in Las Vegas. Yeah, there's a democratic sort of quality to the place. There's also a kind of opportunity to the place. And while one should not exaggerate the thought that somehow people are going to come to Las Vegas and make their fortune, although many have, there is something sort of strangely awesome about the idea, the possibility, the maybe, just maybe, I could hit it big. And it isn't always about gambling. Some people have become very successful in Las Vegas by sort of following a dream or dreaming a dream that they were able to share with the many visitors, or in many cases those who live there. Vegas has a lot of problems, just like America has a lot of problems. There's climate issues, there's issues with crime. There's just questions about the kind of society we have and the kind we want to live in. There's a lot of diversity, and that often means a lot of conflict between different people who have different visions of what Las Vegas should be. And we certainly saw that during the COVID crisis, and I'm sure we'll see it again. Las Vegas has dealt with a lot over the years, just from the fact that it exists in a largely inhospitable climate, which has been tamed to some degree by human ingenuity, but not completely. It survived the decline of the railroad, several world wars, depressions, recessions, crime, the mob, the family-oriented tourism. Yeah, it survived all that. And as we face challenges in our world going forward, no doubt Las Vegas will face them as well. Gas prices through the roof. Guess what? They're even higher in Las Vegas. It's a real serious sort of debate, although maybe a lot of that debate taking place in a not so civil or particularly helpful way, about, again, where we go from here. And where does Las Vegas go from here? We've speculated on that in the past. We have seen, at least in the last few years, a number of new hotels and new ideas. We've seen Las Vegas become a big professional sports town. They said that would never happen. And we've seen in the last couple of years, obviously, the effects of a very dangerous pandemic that for a time shut the city down, and for probably the better part of a year and a half left it somewhat crippled. But Vegas still exists. The crowds are by and large back. Maybe the conventions will be too. If the economy takes a turn for the worse, undoubtedly Vegas will suffer, and some of those brilliant ideas will not come to pass. But I think there's something, again, very American about Las Vegas. Good, bad, or indifferent. Something about it that makes it continue to bounce back. It represents kind of a fantasy world. You can go to Las Vegas and for a time you can be anyone. You can be with anyone. The rules are kind of relaxed a bit, not completely. But yeah, you can go to Vegas one day and emerge a few days later a very different person, a changed person. I think it's happened to a lot of us, maybe not in such a dramatic way, and I don't just mean because we lost all our money, or even that we won some. Vegas is also a community that to a large degree is built on the goodwill of the people who visit. So many of the workers in the city are employed in the tourism industry, and many, if not most of those, depend largely for their incomes on gratuities. A gift, if you will, a thank you of sorts from those of us who visit this fair city from time to time, and those of us who make that visit a reality. I think we saw, certainly in the wake of COVID, how much we need all of those service industry people. And hopefully, I think I have become, we've all become a little more generous in terms of appreciating those people and appreciating them financially as well. And Las Vegas has thrived also because of our weakness, our desire for buzz here and there, for a little excitement, for something that might be taboo. And the city's done its best to cater to exactly those things. But I think another thing about Las Vegas that's perhaps worrisome, and is perhaps worrisome in the larger community of America, is the sense to which those sort of large mega corporate entities, which have become essentially our robot overlords, are threatening to make of Las Vegas, and perhaps of all of us, a much less exciting place, a much more calculated sort of place, a place that doesn't feel like you're flying by the seat of your pants, but listening to aircraft instructions instead. Las Vegas, yeah, and America need a little bit more of a dose of that generosity, of spirit, a sense that it's not just about making money, but in reality, you're more likely to make money when you make people happy, when you give them something they couldn't get anywhere else, when you provide them with a value you couldn't get anywhere else. So as I see hotel prices rising, fees added to bills that we've never seen before, as I see gambling conditions worsening, making it more and more difficult for the average player to have any luck at all, I think that those sorts of things are going to be rather short-sighted. Short-sighted in Las Vegas, short-sighted in America. Yeah, it's easy to romanticize earlier times. They weren't better. I don't think anybody objectively who lived through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s would go back. The world we have now is almost unimaginably different and almost always better. We have medical treatments that are practically miraculous. We have technologies that are practically miraculous. Yeah, the future hasn't always been great, but it's always been bright. And I think it's still bright. In fact, it may be so bright that you'll have to wear shades. You certainly will if you go to Vegas. So, is this a critique of Vegas, or more likely a kind of love letter? I'd probably go with the latter. As I inch toward 50 visits to this city, I can't help but wonder how many more there will be. Perhaps one day I'll move there or move closer to there. Perhaps I'll visit every couple of weeks. But, our lives are always tenuous. We never know what the future has to bring. We never know how many times we'll make it back, how many times we'll land in that airport and take a ride up Paradise to the Strip or beyond. And I guess that's kind of true of America. There's nothing guaranteed, people. Someday there probably won't be a Vegas anymore. And someday there probably won't be an America anymore. And that's not meant to be some sort of profound political statement. It's just that everything in our rather transient world eventually passes. But I think there'll always be kind of the idea of Las Vegas. The idea of that last frontier. That edgy sort of place where anything is possible. I think that's going to live on. I think the idea of America is going to live on. Well, at least, hopefully, some of the good ideas of America. Yeah. All around us, things are changing. And it's always tempting to think everything's getting worse. But by and large, that's not what the statistics tell us. Not if we're serious about looking at things. By and large, things get better. And by and large, Vegas gets better. It's not perfect, but it's good. And for many of us, it's kind of a home away from home. a place we return to because it has a kind of warm place in our heart. And I hope that if there's a time when there's no more Las Vegas, or at least there's no more idea like Las Vegas, I hope if that time comes, it's not in my lifetime. Because I want a world that people can aspire to something ridiculous, aspire to something great, take an insanely stupid chance. Sometimes those chances work out. Las Vegas is not just the marriage capital of the world, for one, at least for a long time, it was also the divorce capital of the world. It's a place where people make and lose fortunes. It's a place that a lot of us have grown to love. And I doubt very sincerely that my rambling tonight has produced anything particularly profound. But sometimes I just like to use this sort of pulpit that I've created for myself in my little sort of chapel over on the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Tropicana to tell people what I think. Fortunately for them, they don't have to listen. But fortunately for me, I still get the opportunity to do it. And I want to thank all of you who've given me the opportunity to do it over these past few years and have occasionally paid attention, who've reached out, who've become my friends and family in many ways. Yeah, there is a Vegas community. Maybe it's got issues, just like our American community has some issues. But I think we're going to get through all this, and I think things are going to get better. And so I guess I'll close it down for this week. I've rambled on enough. If any of you have actually hung on to this end of this entire digression, please just leave a number in the comments below. Any number you want. Any number between 1 and 100. Which reminds me of this time that I went to this kind of low rent show at Bally's that I always recommend to people because it's still there, called Paranormal. And I was kind of blown away by it. It was actually a free show because I had the free show thing through the Caesar's Diamond thing. But I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a try. And the guy was really good. In fact, the guy was so good that I decided after the show I was going to actually go to the meet and greet, shake the guy's hand, say, I really liked what you did. That was impressive. Thank you. And so I did. I stood in line for a while. There was a nice young lady there that was kind enough to take my picture with him a couple of times. If I was remotely ambitious, I'd go get it and put it right here, but I'm not. But at the same time, he asked me if I wanted to, if he wanted me to read my mind. I was like, oh yeah, sure. So he says, think of a number between 1 and 100. And he just kind of looks in my eyes. That's about it. And then he writes something on the back of a piece of paper, and he hands it to me. Is this your number? It was 87. It was a very good year. I think this is going to be a very good year. And I appreciate all of you who've made my Las Vegas experiences so special over the years. From those I've known for over a quarter of a century, to those who've only become particularly special to me in these past 12 months or so. We're going to go ahead and cut this little sermon short. We'll be back next week. We've got Vegas tips and tricks shows on Tuesday and Thursday. I've actually been doing some brainstorming. I've got, I think, some really good tips to share. So some new stuff, some things I haven't talked about before. So hopefully you tune in. We'll do a podcast again on Monday. We'll talk about another Vegas trip we made. Eventually we're going to run out of content there, so we'll have to do something else. But and hey, we're probably only, a week or so away from our next live stream. getting within about 6-7 weeks of our big September trip. But yeah. Okay, I'm going to call it good. And again, appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great, lucky, and healthy week. We'll see you all again real soon. Bye-bye.